Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I would like to talk a little bit about the United Nations Development Program, which was established in 1965 by the General Assembly with the idea of having a transformational role in reducing poverty, empowering women, creating jobs, protecting the environment, and more in over the 170 countries that they work in. The UNDP is looking forward towards the future, imagining a world where all people prosper, societies are more inclusive, and the planet is protected from the worst effects of climate change. So without further ado, I would like to present to you Ludmilla Diniz, who is the Regional Technician Specialist of Climate Change Mitigation and Energy at the United Nations Development Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aku. Thank you for the summit, for inviting me for this session. This is a very dear topic for me, sustainable cities. So I hope we get the chance to discuss a little bit. I thought about bringing some concepts and also some experience that UNDP has with countries in Latin America regarding sustainable energy and mainly on sustainable cities in the region. So I will start. Can you see my screen? You can see my screen. Yes.
Victor, can you confirm if we can see the screen right now? Perfect. We can see your presentation.
Great. Está en full screen or no? Yes, can you see that?
Can you click display settings on the top part, please?
Yeah.
Duplicate slideshow.
Yes. Does it work now? Okay. Okay. Super. Okay, good. So as I said, I want to give you an overview of cities, and I'm not sure why it's changing.
If you left click, does it go to the previous slide?
Okay. I cannot see the. Okay, I'll just get back to stop share. I'll just get back to the first slide. All right.
Yes, we can restart that part, please. Share the screen again.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone, for the inconvenience. We'll be right on.
We do the tasks, all the tasks, but then is it all right now to have the full screen?
One second, please.
So okay, maybe I can start already saying, so the idea of the outline of the presentation is really first to give you an overview about the main infos and trends related to cities and energy and climate, and then discuss a little bit what are the integrated approaches for sustainable cities, which is the approach we work when we're speaking about sustainable cities, and UNDP's work on cities and urbanization, also touching upon COVID issues and how we are thinking about green recovery on cities, and then success stories and projects that UNDP has on the ground. So some figures about. I hope the screen is okay now. So some specific figures about energy and population growth in cities that show us where we stand right now and the big challenge that we have to really foster the sustainable cities concept. So cities generate more than 70% of the world's emissions and consume 80% of world's energy. In general, 50% of cities' greenhouses are related to transport emissions, right? Also, if we exclude the industry sector there. The overwhelming majority of confirmed COVID cases are in cities, 90%. And more than half of the global population now live in urban cities, a number that is expected to increase to 70% by 2050. Latin America, as you might know, is the most urbanized region in the world right now. 80% of our population lives in cities. And also, we are expected to achieve 90% of the population living in cities by 2050. Cities are also a reservoir of solutions, right? Because it's where 80% of the global GDP is generated. So we have this important data about cities. And I also wanted to show a little bit about the demographics. Well, of course, megacities generate the largest carbon footprint in the world. As you see here, the trend of high-income cities generating more carbon footprint is changing. But the majority and the most pressing places in the world are in upper middle income countries, which is the main feature of Latin America countries, right? And lower to middle income countries, cities also contribute considerably. Is the blue one here? On the bottom we can see cities from 5 to 10 million, and then the tons of CO2 generated. It's also interesting to show a comparison at the global level, right, with high urbanization rates. As you see, the darkest color is the countries and regions that have the highest urbanization rates, and how it coincides with high vulnerabilities. Also, the countries with high vulnerabilities are the ones that we can see that have the highest urbanization rates, and then afterwards with the low readiness for extreme weather events and also adaptation, right, to climate change consequences. So here again, just to show the high urbanization rates, high vulnerabilities, and the low readiness. So we're talking about a trend that this is something we must address when we are working in cities. You know, the readiness or the high extreme weather events that are going to increase in time. Also, other map taking like a more global perspective is that rapidly urbanizing countries and maybe considering Africa and Asia have the highest level of air pollution. So here also in the darkest area, you can see the highest concentrations of particulate matter bigger than 2.5 microcentimeters. So those trends really are very interesting and important to consider when we see how cities are developing and growing, right? Once there is a very interesting book that is called 100 mitigation solutions to save climate change, and one of those, I think the top, I think it's the top 6 or the top 2 is related to population growth control, right? And yeah, so this is also what is shown here in this map with this high growth in these urbanized areas in the global south. We have very important challenges going ahead, and we have to think on solutions, innovative solutions to deal with those. So here's some data about cities and climate action, and also some connection with what UNDP is doing, right? Local and regional governments, as I said, are really at the front lines of climate action. It's really at the local level, at the municipal level, that activities are being implemented on climate action. So local, regional, and supranational governments are stepping forward to fill the gap under the Paris Agreement. I'm not sure this has been a while, but when the United States withdrawn from the Kyoto Protocol, the California state stepped out of this and defined, climate targets and climate actions for them. So this is the kind of action that we are saying. Sometimes at the local level, cities and provinces or states are really stepping further on this climate action and leading by example. On previous NDCs, most countries included urban adaptation measures, but very little, around 20 countries, had spoken really clearly about climate mitigation in urban areas. The tendency is really to speak at the national level, sometimes at a sectorial level, but not really on cities. And that we're trying to change this in this next submission of NDCs and with our climate promise support. So currently, I'm actually advancing a little bit on a report that will come for the COP26, written by our climate promise team, about comparing NDCs, the previous NDCs and the enhanced NDCs that have been presented and submitted to the UNFCCC currently. So what we have noticed is that we need what we know is that we need a 40% cut in emissions by 2030 to reach the carbon neutrality by mid-century. So currently, NDCs imply 16% increase in global greenhouse gas emissions in 2030 compared to 2010. So this put us on track to a rise of temperature in 2.7 degrees by the end of the century. So we cannot really rely on what has been presented for NDCs before, and we do have to take like bold actions and pressure governments and policymakers to have really ambition on that. So designing green recovery without cities is not viable and will not be viable. Climate action, including NDCs, post-COVID recovery, longer-term vulnerability strategy needs to account and engage cities. So from NDCs to local climate action on to long-term policies, cities will have to be included, and this is something we're trying to do at the global level, at the national and at the local level as well in UNDP. So I wanted to go a little bit more technical now and actually introduce to you, maybe it's not introduction, but bringing in some concepts which I find very interesting for our practice, right, on actually promoting sustainable cities. So actually, to speak about sustainable cities, I know that this is an energy summit, but we cannot only talk about energy if we are really talking about sustainable cities. A sustainable city will definitely demand an integrated approach, right? And that's what I want to speak about to you. I am an energy practitioner for more than a decade and a half right now. And I thought it was quite interesting when this approach, this more integrated approach came in. And, you know, as energy practitioners or climate mitigation practitioners, we have the opportunity to work with other things and work more transversally with other parts of the climate sphere that are important for a city integrated approach. So where this integration approach happens, well, we can speak about a vertical integration, a horizontal integration, and natural and social integration. So at vertical integration, we mean the alignment between national and local governments, right, towards a common sustainability goal. And this is actually will demand different governance structures, right? Not this very not porous national and local or regional and local governance, but other kinds of stakeholder participation. So that's what we call this vertical integration. Horizontal integration is the collaboration across sectors in planning, financing, and delivery of service. So beyond national, regional, and local partnerships and governance arrangements for sustainable cities, we will need also different sectors acting there. So development banks, civil society, young organizations, youth organizations, think tanks, research institutes. So it also relates to a more broad team of institutions and stakeholders that will sit on the same table to discuss those topics and to fit in the conversation. Natural and human system integration is really related to the natural resources and the built environment, right? How are we going to green our cities? And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that further. And social integration, of course. No, gender is a transversal topic as well when we're speaking about cities. We have a lot to learn to make cities more gender friendly, right? And also to consider the most vulnerable people that have been left behind in city development. So I brought here the urban sustainability framework, which was developed by the World Bank, just to show you the two steps that the World Bank considers that is also related to what I mentioned before, for structuring a framework for sustainability in the city. So the first step would be to understand the city and how we can, what are the pathways for us to achieve this urban sustainability. So it's basically a screening process, of course, that starts with data indicators, And then there are also methodologies for a rapid assessment or benchmarks to understand a scenario analysis. So what is the city we have? What is the city we want, right? With this, for example, an ambitious goal for sustainability, a business as usual. So to understand what are the policy implications and the resources implied to do these changes. Then with that, the definition of this vision, the one that I'm saying, like the business as usual, an ambitious, sustainable city, or a middle ground, and then afterwards the financing and investment screening of what is needed resource-wise to implement this project, this vision of a sustainable city. So the second part is about measuring this urban sustainability, and also the World Bank puts 6 dimensions on that. 2 are enabling dimensions, as I was mentioning. Those are governance and integrated urban planning, and fiscal sustainability. Those are the enabling conditions for really measuring and structuring a sustainability framework for cities. And the outcome dimensions are urban economies. So really with the goal on achieving economic growth, prosperity, competitiveness across all parts of the city. And natural and environmental resources. A city cannot prosper if there are not enough natural resources and protected natural resources that can provide water, energy, clean air. So, and then there's this third dimension, which is climate action and resilience, mitigating and adapting to climate change, and inclusivity and quality of life. You see that it's very similar to what I presented before, but just really structuring governance and fiscal sustainability as the 2 enabling conditions. So to one of the last topics that I thought would be interesting to discuss with you really is the concept, right? The concepts of integrated urban planning and the levers, which is also interesting for you to understand. What does and how do we measure and what are actually the vision of integrated approach for cities, so sustainable cities as an integral approach, right? The main idea now for a city that is low emission and that is sustainable is the concept of compact urban development, right? And this concept is related, we call this 5 Ds. So there are 5 specifically concepts that relate to compact urban development. Density. So basically maximizing compact urban development from mitigating negative aspects such as air pollution and congestion. Okay, normally, for example, cities that are too wide and are not compact demand a lot of infrastructure costs, right? To connect transport to one point to another. And also it can demand, for example, the need for agricultural lands and forests. And, this will be lost. And these are ecosystems or landscapes that serve for the common city as for everybody. So it's important to think that this density as an efficiency level, right? So the second D is diversity of use and income. So neighborhoods have mixed income groups and diverse opportunities for jobs, commerce, leisure. So you are in a more compact space, you have a supermarket close, you have schools, you have residences, offices. So people do not have to live so far away from their work, where they shop, and of course, less emissions from transport, which is the main, at least in Latin America, the main source of CO2 emissions in cities. This will be saved. So design is the third D, shaping cities so that urban residents benefit from the advantages of dense areas, right? So good designs includes walkability, traffic safety controls, and tree cover, right? For also diminishing this heat that is normally kept in the cities because of the built environment and all this. And then the last two ones are distance to transit. So transit options would be ideally accessible for 400 or 800 meters, is what we call the 15 minutes, 20 minutes cities. So normally compact cities, we try to create like an X that defines a 15 to 20 minutes distance to one point to another for the majority of activities that you have to do in the cities. So in destination access, so there is a sustainable transport modes that take people where they want to go. These concepts are very interesting to dive in. And actually, what we call is that the first level of integrated urban development that adopts a low GHG emissions work in 4 levers. So the first lever is the one that I said. So compact urban development with the 5Ds perspective. The second lever is the approach of a single sector technology strategy that will focus on the 7 key sectors that contribute to almost 87% of GHG emissions in cities, which are energy, water property as well, building, transportation, food and food transportation, wastewater, and public spaces. So then we look into strategies to mitigate emissions on a specific technology. So this would be energy efficiency in buildings, transit-oriented development, or massive transportation systems that are more efficient and serve more people, right? And something in this direction. On lever 3, we are going to speak about, and I think it's also very interesting because we can speak about cross-sectorial efficiency strategies, right? If you see this figure that I put there, so one of the concepts of sector efficiency strategies is the kind of district energy, right? So basically, it can yield 40% additional mitigation potential compared to a national single sector efficiency target. So high potential for decarbonization, for example, using what we call waste heat, right? So we could use the waste heat that's generated from a cooling system, for example, to use as to boost other kind of generators, for example. Or we could actually think about a cooling district, right, where the cold water will be shared and actually distributed to this whole district, right, using only one system. So this is a new way also to think the new design of cities. And the last one, which is very important as well, is behavior change and policy strategies, right? Behavior change, it's very, very relevant. We are trying to study and explore more the concepts of of behavioral psychology, behavioral policies to nudge people to act different. But actually, without policy incentives, without financial schemes, it's very hard for one to really do this massive change that we need on urban environments. I think this is the last slide from this more technical area, and then we get really to some of the examples, but I thought it was very interesting to present to you and bring it to you this report that was just launched. I think it was before yesterday. It was launched by the World Resource Institute, WRI, which actually approaches 7 transformations for more equitable and sustainable cities, right? The findings of this study are very pressing, so to say. There are more than 1 billion city dwellers worldwide who lack access to basic services. This is, I'm talking about running water, sanitation, electricity, decent housing, transport, and other amenities. And those guys are actually evaluating the cost that it generates for the whole economy, right? And it's also very interesting to see that benefits from time savings, for example, when we are actually speaking about transport investments, right? Better health, that generates better health, more productivity. We're talking about congestions and this is very strong traffic jams that we have in basically all big cities, but this is a very big issue in Latin America. So those guys say that $1 investment can generate from $4 to $35 benefits in better health, in time saved. So I think there are very interesting conclusions there. But what for me was very panicking. So also was that, you know, looking at 15 of the biggest or more important major cities of the global level, they actually define those percentages of underserved population by municipal services. So you can see housing 67%, energy 42%, because we tend to think that energy access will only happen in isolated rural areas. And indeed, those areas are more needy for stable energy systems, but also the energy systems that are not reliable and is a reality as well in cities, mainly in the Africa continent. So water is also 50%, sanitation 65%, and also we're going to also employment 50 to 80%. And here in our region, we know that informality is very big. So I'm sure Latin America contributes a lot for these rates. So I invite you to really revisit, to visit this study, because it's very shocking to see the reality, right? But it's very comforting to see that fighting inequality is promoting sustainable cities and is also promoting climate action at the city level. So we can actually link the two parts of human development, right? Sustainable development, human development, and achieve interesting results at the climate perspective. Okay, I think I just want to skip through so we can have some time to discuss, but you can still learn a little bit more about UNDP's green recovery focus, right? We're going to, during COVID, we structure for each environment area that we work an offer, for a green recovery. So this is the compilation of what we structured for each area, right? So for green recovery, we are saying that it's important to invest in nature, right? Integrating nature and climate and on national economic policy making, for example, finance and inclusive and green recovery, right? So no bailouts for a high polluting industries, green budgets, just transition, so leave no one behind. And so green recovery must put people at the center and respect human rights and right-based approaches. And last but not least, clean renewable energy transition. So our approaches at the energies, our energy team, it's really to de-risk cleaner energy market. So decrease the risk perception for investors to come in and do the specific renewable energy investments that are needed for the energy transition. Increase affordable household energy access. And increase also energy resilience for sustainable infrastructure, circular economy, and resource efficiency approaches. Continuing a little bit of how to catalyze inclusive green recovery. So it's basically climate in all decisions, right? We must work together with different perceptions and participations of stakeholders. Leave no one behind, and fossil fuel subsidies. It's a very complex topic, but we must touch upon it. I know these reforms are not going to be easy to do, and they must be fair. That's why leave no one behind is other part of the coin as well. But we have to speak about it, and how can we do like the furthest way. So again, no bailout for polluting industries and invest in green jobs. To get a little bit again more in the response and recovery in cities. So UNDP has really, our perspective was really like for COVID was prepare, respond, and recover. So prepare was really at the beginning of the pandemic, that a lot of countries didn't have equipment and all that was needed to put the health systems to work and battle this pandemic. The response was actually supporting those governments to also, after this first phase, to be able to implement the policies that were needed at each specific context, and recover. I think it's the phase that we are coming in, because we are seeing like a really a boost again of a lot of services that were not actually very active since the pandemic starts. So it's time to really revisit and see what we want for our development in this post-COVID era, right? So UNDP supporting cities on COVID recovery, basically or mainly including business continuity measures, supporting the reopening of public spaces and providing, as I said, the equipment that is needed to do that, engaging communities to build their resilience to shocks, and also collecting real-time data to prepare the analysis of socio-economic impacts. We did a lot of socio-economic impacts of COVID. In the region, there are a lot of publications and reports that shows basically for each country in the region what are the impacts of the pandemic in social and economic systems. So also we are putting the vulnerable people at the center of these policies, right? Because sometimes a policy can actually support the recovery, but then the most vulnerable people, are not really included on this concept. So in the end, it will not work out for these people. So UNDP is also enhancing support on initiatives focused on building local capacities, advancing city competitiveness that include restoring livelihoods and jobs, adaptive and innovative municipal finance. So also the systems for supporting the people that were vulnerable and could not work and didn't have the possibility to stay at home, right? And building urban climate resilience, because we saw that COVID resilience was very close to what we call also climate resilience. So to keep going, and I think as you know, for the target audience, I think it would be interested also to know about very recently UNDP's energy promise. Right, UNDP is structuring a new energy hub that will bring together best talent, knowledge, innovations, partnerships to finance and to accelerate the clean energy transition. So we have very bold and ambitious targets. Of course, we're not going to achieve those by ourselves, right? So we want to give access to clean and affordable energy for 500 million people, 1 billion people with clean cooking solutions, 100 countries in implementation of energy commitments of their NDCs, plus 50 countries with an energy efficiency improvement per year, more than 3%, and this is very low right now. Public finance to support the transition, and SDG finance, redirecting fossil fuels funding for over 700 billion annually to SDGs. Yes, I will leave it here. I will not touch upon it because I want to speak a bit more now of what we are doing with young energy and climate activists. As you might know, this September there was the high-level dialogue on energy, and we sought to really include you and the leaders that were pioneering new technologies, trialing solutions to energy challenges at the community level. So young people also that are just interested in energy, right, and want to actually contribute with their life experiences were also invited. So you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but so there were all kinds of profiles in this participation. So UNDP had the public consultation designed for 30 years under who wanted to add the input for the technical working groups of the high-level dialogue on energy. The consultation link is here, and you can check the information there. And youth representatives were appointed to also moderate, right, the discussion and draw on the ideas and making their recommendations. The outcomes of those consultations is that the ideas of more than 300 young people involved and that contributed, right, were included and reflected in energy compacts, including our partner SDG 7 Youth Constituency. If you are not aware about energy compacts were very disseminated during the high-level dialogue, but those are actually voluntary commitments from member states, from all kinds of stakeholders, NGOs, civil society, governments, enterprises, private sector, right, where they specifically speak out their actions that they're taking to advance progress on SDG 7. So you can access the Energy Compacts page and get to see those. Other key results of this consultation is actually that we have a new network of UNDP Young Energy Activists, and you can still sign in on the Spark Blue group of UNDP, and stay tuned for the updates. Other interesting blog that I also left the link here for you is a blog that we prepared with a young contributor, and I want to actually speak more about what's next, because I think you can contribute also in this. So I would actually we have launched the Dear World Leaders campaign, and I would like you to please see this video from our administrator Achim Steiner inviting you to participate. Here underneath you have this dearworldleaders.org link where you can submit your 1-minute video and participate on this. So if you could kindly put the video, now the first one.
Yes, okay. Can you please stop sharing screen for a second so I can share the video?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, this is the second one. It's the first one, sorry. I am pasting also in the chat the link for the videos, in case we don't have time to see that. Would be the first one. Yes.
That's why at UNDP, we're collecting messages from people across the world. We will deliver them to world leaders at COP26 to remind them of what's at stake. So I invite you to record a 1-minute video of yourself talking directly to world leaders. Tell them how they can change the future. World leaders will hear your voice. Thank you.
So much, so I start sharing my screen again.
Please.
Okay. So yes, please participate. I think it will be interesting for to have your voices as energy practitioners, young people interested, passionate about energy. And yeah, as I know we are finishing, I'm just going to speak a little bit more about a very interesting project that we have in the city of Asunción. This project is an integrated approach project, which objective is to improve the quality of life of the population in Asunción. The project works with integrated urban planning with both mitigation and adaptation components, from sustainable mobility to flood prevention to biodiversity conservation. So it's also, and that's why I put this governance chart here, because it's very elaborated. And that's how they could add new stakeholders to urban planning discussions, integrated in cross-cutting themes, and enabled innovation and contribution to local governments and to NDCs. So the project on the governance level also has strengthened metropolitan city councils and enabling participatory multi-stakeholder platforms. So we have gender organization, women organization, we have cyclist organizations, we have ministers of finance, of energy, energy they don't have, they have a secretary, but Ministry of Environment sitting at the same table, and that's where the magic happens, I can say. So to speak a little bit more about the results of this project, here you can see Asunción's cover in the 80s, in the 90s, and in the 2000s. So the project facilitated now that Asunción has 11 flooding response to 11 municipalities of the metropolitan area. And they are finalizing the land and disaster risk reduction management plans for these 11 municipalities of the metropolitan area. Because, well, when we also take this integrated approach, we cannot talk only about this node city, which in this case is Asunción. We have to really expand it to the metropolitan area. And that's why we normally never work with one city only. We work with 11 cities in the case of Asunción, Paraguay. Also, the project supported through a participatory design, a network of 600 kilometers for the Asunción metropolitan area, and the project will build 60 kilometers, which is now under construction. So it was very interesting, the platforms that were used to do this design. So very participatory women, and gave their voice and participated on this. Also, the project created a design for sustainable bus stops with like information, with also some presentation of the specific treats that you can find in the city of Asunción. So it's very pleasant to be in such a bus stop. And we also constructed in the main route areas for transport 30 of those bus stops in the city. Also, the project acquired a air quality monitoring station. So the city and the country didn't have any technology to actually monitor the quality of the air. So this is also a very important step to actually define standards for combustion engines, to promote mobility. So this is a very important milestone for the city. On solid waste and chemical substance management, the work is also amazing. Okay. More than 10 neighborhoods were supported, families, and then there's also a platform that connects recyclers and those families. Urban green areas is also very relevant area of the project. So I just wanted to give you an overview. And the biggest green area of Asunción, which is the Ecological Reserve of São Miguel, was cleaned by a brigade formerly mainly by women. And 100 people have also, like, living there, vulnerable people have also profited from this work. You see here the interesting work that we are doing with biological corridors, and also an action plan for the biodiversity, so for improving biodiversity and increasing in the metropolitan area of Asunción. But I think I will stop here actually and see before we finish if we have some time to questions. And I'm not seeing the chat, so I was not really aware of the time. So yes, please, if you have any questions or if you would like to discuss or to clarify any point, I'm open.
Thank you very much, Ludmilla. It has been a very interesting presentation. As you mentioned earlier, I think this could be a whole master's degree by itself, and this permits for future conversations, which we will most gladly have, and invite the UNDP again. There is one quick question about what is the role for youth in Latin America to achieve sustainable cities?
Yes, I think you should actually search for these platforms for stakeholder engagement, and raise your voice and make your voice be heard. If there are people that are really enjoying the public space and in a practical level, and that would have feedbacks and interesting inputs for a sustainable city perspective or design, it's you. Right? So I would say search for these platforms for stakeholder engagement. Organize, I know that you already organize through organizations or initiatives. So, and search to participate on this and bring your perspective. Right? We need to do cities that are much more inclusive, that has the, the interests and the perspectives of girls and women included, of young people included. So I would invite you to really participate. This topic, it's very very exciting, I think. I wanted to give more time to discuss. I'm not sure if there is other question, but I remain available. I will also send you the presentation, so you can see the full information there.
Thank you very much, Ludmilla. I think that we have to wrap up right now, but it has been a very enriching experience to have this talk with you, and everything will be posted online on Climate Education. And thank you everyone for joining us live. See you soon.
Bye-bye. See you soon.